Hey guys, how we doing? It's Grandpa's Cabin Life on both Instagram and YouTube. Hope everybody is doing well. I apologize for the lighting in my office, and it's either wickedly drowned out bright lighting or what we have with this. So this seemed better than the bright lighting. So anyway, we're going to be talking about chapter 5 of the book. I own it. Now what? So these are talking about the next steps once you've actually signed the closure agreement and money has exchanged hands and now it is yours. And again, the book goes into way more detail on each of the topics we're going to cover. This is really just a very brief overview to give you some rough ideas. If you're really interested in purchasing property and that's something that you've thought about doing, then definitely get the book so that there's more detail for you to go over. And I talk about products and I talk about things I've used during the process from the actual purchase of the property on through the actual cabin going in. All right, so first thing now that you own it is posting and security. My property attorney, one of the first things he told me is the most important thing to do once you purchase a property is to post it. You can get the posting signs from Home Depot, your local hardware store, Lowe's, wherever. They all carry them. And it basically says, that the property is posted, no hunting, fishing, trespassing. Usually has a space for your name and a contact number. You want to put that up on all access points. So if you have a driveway to the property, you want to make sure you're posting on either side of the driveway. You want to make sure you're posting the entire perimeter of the property. Now, why is this important? Two things, really. First, it lets people know that now the property is owned and it is no longer unoccupied or unused. And the second piece, and probably the most important, it protects you from any liability if you have trespassers on the property and they are injured. So that's why it's important to post the entire perimeter. In my case, my property is surrounded by state game land. So really everywhere there is a state game sign, I pretty much have a posted sign right across from it. So the property lines are very clearly delineated to prevent anybody from coming onto my property from state game land. Hasn't really been an issue, but again, you want the signs up there to protect yourself and make it clear to everyone that the property's owned. All right, if you have a main access point, definitely place a gate. That should be one of the first things you want to do to secure the property and prevent any vehicular traffic from going down to if you have a clearing or you have a tent or a camp or something set up. It also will help limit foot traffic. Most people, if they see the gate, it's a very clear sign that the property is occupied. So they'll not go down, or it will keep them from going down and taking a look and seeing what's down there. Cameras. So this is hugely important. Now here's the thing, if you don't have electricity and you don't have Wi-Fi, you're not able to do or have in place some of the surveillance cameras that are real time. What you can do is take a look at the trail cams that work off of cell phone signals. Most of those work with Verizon or AT&T and several other providers. And while they don't give you necessarily real time, they will update you depending upon how you set the properties for the camera. They will give you a notification with motion and will generally send an image, or you can set it up to take a video. In this case, there's going to be a delay from when that image is taken to when it gets to your phone, but that may be enough time for you to be able to reach out to the sheriff if it's within a couple of minutes of seeing somebody trespassing on the property or a vehicle on the property that's not supposed to be there. Worst case is it gives you documentation of a vehicle or an individual so that if you do run into problems, you do have documented photographic or video evidence to share with the sheriff's office. Eventually, once you get to the point that you have power, whether it be solar or you're hooked into the power company, into the grid, and you have Wi-Fi, then you can go ahead and get those real-time surveillance cameras. Again, start with the trail cams. It's a reasonably inexpensive modality that will give you at least a pretty good degree of comfort and security for the property. One of the other things you also want to do, especially if you're without power, is the solar powered and motion sensor lights. Those, I have a couple of those at the gate, one on either side. So anything that comes near that gate, I've seen it actually get triggered with game as well, will set those lights off. So one, if you have security cams, it makes it much brighter so that you're getting a better quality picture, but it also is a very real alert to anybody who might have thought about trespassing that indeed this might not be such a good idea because now they're brightly lit up. I have them again at the gate, and I also have them throughout the property where I have the shed and the cabin. So again, these are some of the basic things you want to look at doing immediately when you purchase the property. Again, just to make it keep people off of it who aren't supposed to be there, and prevent any really issues. Power options. Again, this is a very it's a lengthy chapter in the book, chapter 5, because there's really so much that it goes into. So power options. What are you going to do for electricity once you are at the property? Probably the best way, and I think most people start off with a generator. They're easy and portable, reasonably inexpensive. You can pretty much run, depending upon the size of your generator, an entire camp. Downside is they're noisy and you have to constantly keep fueling them, so there is a downside to them. But they're good as at least an initial primary source of power, and definitely they're an excellent backup source of power once you've decided to either go with solar or hook into the grid. With my cabin, I have a generator pre-wired into the system so that if I do lose power, I can immediately access generator power if I have to. So that's one option. Solar is another. Again, this is an excellent, solar is an excellent off-grid option, but can be very expensive because it's not only an issue of the solar panels, but it's also an issue of battery storage so that you have electricity when the sun is not shining, at night and in inclement weather. So it can be very pricey. I know when I was looking at it, it was the peak of COVID, the peak of supply line disruptions. So in order to power the cabin that I had, it was going to run me around 40 grand, and that was just way, way too steep. But again, with solar, you can start off small with just a couple of panels and a couple of deep cycle batteries that you can charge your phone and run some basic lighting and some other things off of, and then slowly ramp up to eventually having a fully established solar panel array with battery backup and an inverter so that you can make that power usable for the cabin. Power company hookups. Okay, this can be expensive, probably not as expensive as solar, although again, solar prices have come down dramatically now that supply chain issues have been resolved. As far as getting power from the power company, that process will vary based upon how far away you are from existing power lines and transformers. So that's also going to dictate your price. Some companies will give you the first 100 to 500 feet for free, depending upon your power company. Again, that's a conversation you have to have with them, and they will let you know what they do offer. Otherwise, after that free run, it can be up to $25 a foot. Although, again, that price can even be variable anywhere from like $10 to as many as $25, again, depending upon what who your power company is in the area. In general, too, when you're hooking into the grid and the power company, they will generally just run power to a pole on the edge of your property. It's then going to fall to you and your electrician to trench out and run the lines from the power company's line at the road to your cabin. In my case, what we ended up having to do is the power company actually put a transformer on the edge of my clearing where the cabin is. And we were then responsible for running power from the transformer out at the road, trenched it out, and run that power line to the transformer on the edge of the clearing, and then from the transformer uh, to the cabin itself. So again, this is all a conversation you'll have with the power company. They will have site inspectors that will come out once you've made the initial contact. They will look at everything involved. They will generate a plan and be able to give you a solid cost estimate for what's involved. And one of the other options is if you do opt to go with power from the power company, you can at a later date switch over to solar, and you have then the ability to plug into the grid so that you can sell excess solar power back to your electric company. Again, it does help offset some of the cost. And, you know, something to think about if solar wasn't an initial option. So you went with hooking into the grid and the power company, but at some point later on down the road, you do want to go solar with your property. Then you can generate at least some profit from that by selling electricity back to the power company. So something to think about. All right, waste management. All right, so this is another hot topic. Again, there's a lot involved with this and a lot more detail in the book. But your systems can run anywhere from the very simple to the very complex. And when I say simple, I'm talking simple as a cat hole, which is where you dig a hole, you poop in it, you throw your toilet paper in it, cover the hole up. Or, you know, something as simple as a 5-gallon, say, Home Depot bucket with a toilet lid and a garbage bag as a liner. And, you know, after each time you go, or at the end of a weekend, you just bag everything up and drop it in the garbage. In some cases, you might want to bury it, whatever the case may be. Just sort of a public service announcement, at least on this part with waste management. Never be a surface pooper. That is, I think, probably one of the most deplorable types of people in the world, where you just kind of poop wherever you happen to have to go, drop your toilet paper all on the surface, so that anybody who's out hiking or hunting has to dodge your poop. Not cool. Dig a hole, turn over a rock, do something, but don't be a surface pooper. All right, PSA completed. So some of the other things, if you don't want to go that simple, an outhouse, those are very real options. If you go on YouTube, there are literally dozens of various outhouse builds, from very simple to very complex. And I mean, it's very workable. Yeah, it's not a flush toilet, but you know, it's at least a place out of the elements to be able to go. Granted, it's wicked cold in the wintertime if you're using it, and in the summertime, you may have some company from some very large wolf spiders who think it's an awesome place to hang out. So while that was one of the things we were thinking about initially, we opted not to go with an outhouse simply because of not a spider fan. All right, so composting toilets, and this is more when you're looking at having a cabin or a set structure. These are really good if you don't have a septic system. So it's kind of all the comforts of a regular at-home toilet. Except for a couple things. The urine and the feces cannot mix, right? So it's only the feces that go into the composting portion of the toilet. The urine actually goes in a separate collection bottle. That, unfortunately, one of the downsides is that urine has to get emptied pretty frequently, especially depending upon the number of people you have at camp or utilizing the toilet. And every so often, you do have to clean out that composting section of the toilet. So, yeah, while it saves you from having to put in a septic, you're going to have to clean out poop, albeit composted poop, and then the urine on a fairly regular basis to keep the system working well. One of your other options is a holding tank. So this is basically like a gray water. So if you have a running water, say for faucet and a shower and a toilet, you can have those go into this collection tank, and then say every 6 months or so, or more frequently if it's a year-round occupied dwelling. You have a truck come in that pumps out septic systems, and they'll pump out the tank for you. This may be viable. It may not be, depending upon where you are and what the code is. Both building and health department codes. Where I am, that was one of the things I was initially considering doing, because those tanks, they're basically plastic, they're super cheap, and are super simple to hook into and super simple to pump out. However, the state that I purchased my property and have my cabin does not permit them, simply because they were initially allowed, but people failed to maintain them. So there were some significant issues with contamination from human waste in the surrounding areas and in streams and things like that. So they eventually went ahead and just eliminated them from the health and building codes. So one of the other options, and what's going to be the most expensive, is obviously putting in a septic system. It requires permitting, it requires perk testing, it requires an engineering plan, sign off from the building department and the health department in the town where you live. So, and again, the current or the newer setups of septic tanks and systems, it's really a multi-tank setup. So you're generally looking somewhere between $12,000 to $15,000, even if you only have a one bathroom cabin. So yeah, it's a pricey option. However, it requires minimal care. Again, in my case, with how frequently the cabin is used and the toilets are flushed, the installer probably said it would likely be around every 5 years. I would only have to worry about having the septic system pumped, and it can even be longer than that, so up to 7 years. So on my end, minimal care. And if you just do decide to sell the cabin or the property down the road and you have the septic system in, it's definitely a plus for the sale of the cabin. So again, the more expensive, but the easier to work with as far as having the cabin and a waste management system. All right, so the next thing, let's talk about water. Again, it's going to be a key piece. You're going to want to have water to drink, water to bathe with, water to cook with. So you have several options. You can bring it as either, a case of water or in 1 and 5 gallon bottles, which you can use the larger bottles for cooking or for washing. Again, it's pricey and it does present a recycling issue. But it's a clean and readily available potable water source. Rain runoff collection is also another viable option, but you do need to have the collection basins to hold the water. And it's generally, you can certainly use it for cleaning, for bathing, but I would definitely think about boiling it for drinking, and even I would think for cooking. You don't know what is on your roof or what that water is running through to get into that holding tank. And over the course of time, depending upon how well you maintain that holding tank, you can always get some bacteria or mold or something that starts to grow on the inside. So definitely think about boiling it if you're going to be drinking it or using it to cook. I've also seen some cabins that utilize a local stream, and they actually set up a gravity flow system that feeds the cabin with fresh water for both cleaning and bathing. Again, if this is your option for water for the cabin, which is very viable, you definitely want to make sure you're boiling it, because you do not know what or who is peeing or pooping in your water supply upstream. Especially beavers are notorious for giardia, and putting that into the system downflow of where they have their dams and their living arrangements. So yeah, definitely boil that if you're going with the local stream and gravity feed. What I did leave off this off this slide is actually having a well put in. That again, also a potentially pricey undertaking, but it does establish a suitable, readily available water supply. Might require you to put some filters in because it is groundwater. It might have a little taste or odor, sulfur or something like that. When you first start using it, I know when I opened the cabin up this spring and I turned the water back on, there was quite a bit of sediment that initially came out for that first probably hour or so, and I really had to run the water constantly to eventually get that out. And then after the sediment was done, there's always that little bit of sulfury smell. And generally, what my well guy recommended is to put 1 to 2 gallons of bleach down into the well, and that generally helps in short order to get rid of that odor. Again, I don't currently have filtration into the lines, and I'm probably going to do that moving forward just to help deal with that sediment and just really help filter out some of the odors and other impurities that are in it. But again, a very viable, albeit expensive option, putting in a well. Because again, it's permitted, you're going to have the well driller come out. Depending upon how far down the groundwater is, it can be, you're probably starting off at maybe 4,000 or 5,000, and that can go as high as 10,000 to 15,000 depending upon how deep they have to go. So something definitely you want to price out ahead of time. But again, a really good option for water supply. All right, so let's talk about structures. This was the last section in chapter 5 of the book. And again, you can do this as simple or as complex and advanced as you want. You can stage it. So you go from simple to more complex as you have the time and the money. So basically, when I started with my property and I purchased it, there was nothing up there other than the driveway and the clearing. So I started off with a tent that went into the back of the bed of my pickup truck. And that was quite comfortable. And from there, we advanced to an outfitter tent. Again, much more room. The outfitter tent that I purchased, you could have 2 cots in and a little cooking area. It also came with a wood stove, which provided a nice ready source of heat and also surface to cook on. But again, you're talking $1,000 to $2,000 depending upon the size of the tent and the amenities you want with it, as far as like windows and doors and screens and things like that, and also the size of the wood stove all factor in. But again, an outfitter tent is an excellent interim between camping in the back of your truck and if you decide to get a cabin. Another potentially good option is a shed. Again, you can get sheds coming in multiple sizes. They provide both shelter and storage. You could certainly outfit a shed with a wood stove and make it quite livable. There are some very large sheds that I have seen people actually turn into small cabins. They roughed out a kitchen, they roughed out a bathroom, a living space, and a sleeping space. So there's a lot that can be done with a shed. Generally, depending upon the shed size and your building code, there may be a permit that you have to get from the municipality to get the shed. Something to keep in mind, and you want to touch base with the code enforcement officers in your town to make sure you're staying compliant with everything. The sheds can come in, again, multiple sizes and multiple materials. There are wood sheds, plastic sheds, metal sheds, so there's quite a vast choice based upon really what your budget is and what it is you're looking to get. So, yep, shed is a really good interim option for both shelter and storage. And then, of course, obviously last is cabin. And again, this also runs the gamut. You can have a builder come out and build you a cabin from scratch. You can get yourself a kit if you're super adventurous and have a little bit more of woodworking skills. You can build your own cabin from the timber that is on your property if you are so inclined, right? So it's certainly an option. For those of us who are not inclined to build our own, certainly there's definitely look into something that's called a park model cabin. These are cabins that are constructed in a factory that come to your site delivered in one piece, all set to move into, literally ready to hook into power, water, and septic or whatever setups you have. They're fantastic. They are really, really reasonably priced for all that you get with them. My particular cabin, and I did go with one of the park model cabins, I got mine from Lancaster Log Cabins. The website is right there, lancasterlogcabins.com. They're based in, I think it's Ashton, PA. Fantastic. I went out there with my wife. We took a look. We went to the factory, got a firsthand look at the process, and they had multiple models that were on site, and we got to tour them, and that is what we decided to go through. That's who we decided to use when we made the decision to get a cabin. And interestingly enough, when I was having some work done on the property, we had a contractor who wanted to see the interior because he was so impressed by what the exterior looked like. So he went in, walked around, looked at everything that was in there, and basically said that there was no way that he could even build a cabin from scratch for the same price that I purchased my cabin from Lancaster Log Cabins. So if you're thinking about park model, you don't want to go spend 150, 200,000 to have a cabin built, or you just don't have the building acumen to build your own from scratch. Definitely look at park model cabins as a really viable option. So again, chapter 5 of the book, what to do when you own the property. There's a lot more information in depth in the book. I suggest you certainly pick a copy up if you're looking to purchase property. I created it to be a step-by-step guide to walk you through what to expect and the things to look at doing, the things that you can purchase to make your camp life a little bit more comfortable as you're moving through the various stages from truck bed camping to eventually getting a cabin and power and water and septic or whatever the case may be. So, yep, a cabin in 40 acres, again, on sale, Amazon, wherever books are sold, Barnes & Noble. You can even order it through your local bookstore. Yeah, so check it out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I could try and touch on them in future videos. I will be doing a video just that is focused on a tour of the cabin, both interior and exterior and the pad, because I have had some questions about, what's the cabin like? What kind of pad did I put down? So I'm going to do a full video just on that. Probably going up in the next week or so to make that happen because I have to get a delivery of stone for some drainage projects that we're going to be doing later in April when my buddy comes up with his Kubota. So again, leave your comments. I will answer them as best I can. Again, Grandpa's Cabin Life on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks again for everyone that's subscribed to both my YouTube channel and my Instagram page. Greatly appreciate it. So yeah, pass it on, share it. Again, since it's a YouTube video, click like. If you're not subscribed, by all means, please subscribe. Every little bit helps with building support and building a following. So yeah, definitely share it. Let your friends know if they have similar interests. And hope you're having a great week and you're doing the things you want to do with the people you want to do them with. So Grandpa's Cabin Life, have a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye now.